Hey, super stoked to continue our series on nomadic living. And we've been talking about the idea of having a steady home versus being constantly on the move, roaming, moving here and there. And sometimes that can be good, but sometimes it can be problematic. And I just want to encourage you, if you have not yet got your copy of The Road Home, hello, make sure you get this, because it's kind of the vaccination, so to speak, for nomadic living. So go to Amazon, grab your copy. Very, very amazing book. Isabella and I wrote it together. She did the allegory, I did the Bible part. I think it's one of the best things we've done so far. Anyways, grab your copy on Amazon. But when we're talking about nomadic living, I want us to think about this today in relation to an individual that Jesus made a very specific appointment to go and see, to go and communicate and connect with. So we read about this in Luke chapter 8, verses 27 through 29. And I find this fascinating because before verse 27, it says Jesus was with a whole crowd of people. And the crowd of people was like, we think you're incredible, and it's Jesus, he's healing the sick, he's giving free lunch, he's Jesus. And he leaves all of that recognition, the crowd, the popularity, the applause, some of the conflict, but just huge, massive amounts of, talk about a major influencer. That's Jesus. Like, he is the influencer. He leaves all of that. He crosses the Sea of Galilee. He lands on the other side in a very desolate place. And when he lands in this place, it says in verse 27, when he came out to the land, he was met by a man from the city who was possessed by demons, who had not put on any clothes for a long time. So he's nude, right? Nude, and was not living in a house, but the man lived in the tombs. Seeing Jesus, he cried out and fell before him and said in a loud voice, "What business do we have together, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" And it's interesting because as you continue to read about this guy, he says Jesus commanded the unclean spirits to come out of him, but the man was in when he lived in the city, they tried to chain him, they tried to shackle him, and control him, keep him like civilized, living in the city. And it said the demons tormented him. He would break the chains. He would run away. He lived among the tombs. And I think it's in Mark where it says he gashed himself with rocks. He would cut himself. And then he would cry out. And, I just find this a tormented existence for this man. Tormented. He didn't have a home. He lived naked among the tombs, driven, harassed, tortured by the demons that were inside of him. And they used him for their pleasure. They plinked him, and all of his torment brought the demons great pleasure. If you think about that, that is a sad existence. And I think it was everything inside of this man when he saw Jesus. I think that inside the demons were telling him, run away, don't come near. And I think in his own heart he was like, but if I can just be free, if I can find someone who can help me, who can get rid of this torture, who can, extract, kick out, excise these demons, the things that torment me internally. And you could see the evidence of the torment externally by his behaviors and what he did. But I love that he fell at Jesus' feet. I think it was everything he could do to get his body in front of Jesus. Hopeful maybe, outside chance that there's a chance that he could be freed from this internal torment and torture. And I think sometimes that's what can happen to us in terms of internal turmoil. Now, sometimes it's demonic, like this guy, but sometimes their internal turmoil can cause us to move and not be stationary. We bounce from thing to thing to thing to thing, and it's like we change jobs, we change this, we do this, that. And it's that internal turmoil that's driving us, where we don't have home, where we don't feel settled, where we just can't seem to exhale. Stop! Hold on just a second. We have a fantastic joke for you. Wink, wink. Right, okay. So, where do sharks go on vacation? Right? Because we're thinking about summer vacation. And sharks, if they go on vacation, where do they go? They go to Finland. Finland. Oh my goodness, Helsinki? Of course. Why not? Okay, let's get back to something a little bit more meaningful and engaging. You know, I just want to encourage you that Jesus can set us free. Whether it's getting rid of demons or Him participating in our heart as the Prince of Peace. That on the inside, we can have a home in our hearts with Jesus. I think this is such an important thing for us to consider. And when we see people who are tortured and they seem homeless, they seem nomadic, let's have some compassion and let's think about and pray for them and recognize that Jesus can also help us in our own souls so that we don't have to be nomads, hopping and running and scurried and driven, but rather we can have peace with Jesus. Because at the end of the story, we see this man who was tortured by demons. The demons, Jesus kicked him out. And then, when you read about him a few verses later, you'll see he's clothed, seated with Jesus, and in his right mind, settled. Because when Jesus comes into our life, into our hearts, the Prince of Peace brings peace and stability into our hearts, and we can settle, exhale, and find home with Jesus. So, so powerful. Next week, we're going to wrap up this series, and you totally don't want to miss next week. I think it's going to be the best episode of this whole series, so make sure you join next week as we talk about experiencing home.